11:35. This is BBC Radio Wales. The PlebGate story has taken a new twist, hasn't it? An officer from Scotland Yard's Diplomatic Protection Group was arrested and bailed over the weekend in connection with the alleged leaking of information to the press about the incident at Downing Street, in which, I know you remember this story, Andrew Mitchell, the then Conservative Chief Whip, is said to have called officers plebs. The officer in question has been suspended from duty. Let's talk to Mike Pannett, who's a former Metropolitan Police officer. Mike, hello, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jason.
Nice to have you on the show, Mike. So you served in the Met for a number of years. How disturbed are you about this development?
Well, look, I'm looking at it on face value. Unless there's something more sinister and underlying, then I'm very worried. I think, the great thing about our police service is that the police by consent, and they're, very accountable to the public. And obviously, everybody's well aware of what's gone on within the Leveson inquiry. And in fact, Leveson identified that the police potentially should have a body that they could go to if they need to pass some information, if they felt something was in the public interest.
Yeah, but that's going to a body, isn't it? So there's almost like a middleman between the press and the police. Do we know what happened here?
Well, again, I've got to go on the face value, but
yeah, on what you're hearing.
But what I'm hearing is really disturbing me because, I've got to ask: is it proportionate in what's happened? We've had Andrew Mitchell who sort of went along and it was identified that he had used inappropriate language and behaviour towards police officers, and yet here we are down the line when an officer who's obviously felt it was in the public interest to expose what was said and what happened, suddenly find themselves arrested. So it's very important that the police, if they think there's something not right or there's something that should come out, it's important. And if you look at what's happened within the Jimmy Savile case in the BBC, if you like, nobody really spoke out. And yet here we have somebody speaking out to bring something into the public domain, which in my view is in the public interest for people to know, and suddenly finding themselves arrested. It is worrying. Yes.
What message do you think, Mike, this sends to whistleblowers in not just the police force, but in many walks of public life?
Well, again, it's quite clear to me that if you're going to speak out, you're going to find yourself, and I think this is what is worrying me, that obviously the press people at the police have released a statement saying that somebody was arrested over the weekend, and it's just the timing of it all and the way it's come out. It would make police officers very concerned about potentially speaking out about things that are not right. And let's be right, if the police themselves are having concerns about the senior management team or people at ACPO level where they feel it necessary to speak out without going to their own people, that, to me, is very, very disturbing.
At the same time, Mike, one could argue that this officer could have reported this incident to his superiors and then they could take action.
Well, yes, I can understand that, but really I think there must be grave concerns within the sort of frontline police officers that if they do pass messages up the line, is it going to be acted on? Or, in this case, because it's such a high-profile minister, would in fact it have actually got out to the public? And again, like I've said, I'm only going on face value. Now, if this is the only thing the officer has been arrested for, it brings into question is it proportionate? Why in fact would they necessarily need to go and arrest him? Why not just ask him in to be interviewed potentially to find out what's gone on? And of course, I'm quite confident that this is not a cash for questions issue. This has been leaked to bring the information into the public domain, Jason.
Yeah, but Mike, you've worked for the Metropolitan Police, OK? So Met Police Media, according to The Guardian, Met Police Media guidelines say any officer suspected of leaking information should be subjected to disciplinary and or criminal investigation. So if those lines are very clear, maybe this officer should not have gone to the press and should have gone to his superiors.
Look, the last thing I think the public wants is for police officers to be feeling, looking at the police, and do they feel that they want to know what's going on? And I think the answer is yes. We're not talking about giving away official secrets here, Jason. We're talking about something which should be going into the public domain. And I think there are obviously the reasons that people sort of leak and whistleblow, as I've just sort of commented on. If only somebody had done that within the BBC when they heard what was going on with Jimmy Savile, then potentially we wouldn't have found where we are with the Savile case. And if things are not right within policing, there must be a mechanism to speak out. And I think that's where the concerns are lying, that if they, were to speak out, it's going into sort of senior people who make decisions within the police, and they then decided whether the public should or shouldn't know anything about it. Now, again, if it's, we're not talking about giving confidential stuff away about criminal cases, which could jeopardise things, or official secrets. This is things which potentially need to be discussed, and quite rightly so. So I do agree the police should have a mechanism to get information into the public domain without putting the jobs on the line. And I don't think this is a great message. And if this is the only thing that the officer's been arrested for, there may well be other issues, and that will potentially come out. But from what I'm seeing at the moment, it seems very sort of using a sledgehammer to crack a nut and again, is it proportionate?
And that relationship between the police and the press has been under intense scrutiny, hasn't it, both before, during and after the Leveson inquiry. On the face of it, Mike, do you think that that's what's at play here, that the superiors at the Metropolitan Police are simply making sure that the relationship between the police and the press isn't what it was like before Leveson?
Look, be absolutely right about it. If there's any wrongdoings within the police or within journalism and money's been exchanged, then that is absolutely not correct. But what I'm talking about here is if things happen within policing and potentially even at senior levels where officers don't feel that going through the channels will get a result because of where the news may end up, then getting information into the public domain. And of course, the news correspondents, again, quite rightly, have got a responsibility of what they should and shouldn't run. But if a police officer is that concerned about that something needs to come out there and it's not been released for whatever reason, then that